The last speaker, Deputy Michael Harty. 20 minutes.
Thank you very much, Cathaoirleach, and thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this debate. The Health Service Executive Governance Bill 2018 is an extremely important bill, and I would like to welcome it because it is at last introducing real health reform, structural reform. And it reflects one of the main recommendations of the Sláintecare report, which was published in the 30th of May 2017. So it has taken this length of time, 20 months, to reach a point where legislation is being introduced to reappoint the board. And it's very disappointing that it has taken almost 2 years to bring this legislation forward. And it is indicative of the slow pace of implementing Sláintecare reforms, which of course is very disappointing, considering that Sláintecare has cross-party support. But nevertheless, I think it is a start, and a very welcome start. And the bill is a significant reversal of government policy, which was initiated, as Catherine Connolly has so clearly explained, in 2012 by James Riley, who disbanded the HSE board on a whim. I think it was his intention to disband the HSE board and to do it within 100 days of being appointed minister. And this intention to replace the board was never completed. And the structures that were put in place, the clinical directorates that were put in place and the civil servants that replaced the board members never really worked. And I think it has contributed to the demise of our health service that we are experiencing today. In fact, the Programme for Partnership Government, published in May 2016, which underpinned this government, also had in it the continuing dismantling of the HSE and replacing it with a new structure. Of course, that new structure has never appeared, thankfully. And in our deliberations in the Sláintecare Committee, we were advised by many people who were experts in change management that if we were going to reform our health service, we should do so with the minimum amount of structural change possible, because once you make major structural changes, it's going to take years and years to implement them. So the recommendation was to reconstitute the HSE board and work from within the HSE to reform the health service and not set up a new body. But it did make a recommendation which I think is also very important, and I hope the Minister is going to progress with it, and that is to decentralise the HSE, not down to health board level, but to decentralise it to regional bodies where the hospital groups and the community health organisations will be merged into one, and they will have one budget. They will have the independence to deliver services in their region as their regions need those services, and not have the unwieldy centralisation that we have in the HSE at the moment. So I hope that the appointment of a HSE board is the start of that process. And we have seen how chopping and changing in our health management structures has inhibited real health reform. And this has resulted in chaotic and fragmented health services. It does allow for excellent and adequate care in some areas, but unfortunately there are many areas in our health service which are extremely stressed and do not deliver optimum care. So we have incoherent policies and a management structure which is almost impossible to navigate. We are all aware of the problems with our waiting lists, and today we had 535 patients on trolleys, which in an average winter is now almost acceptable. Of course, it is not acceptable. But trolleys are just a symptom of wider problems within our health service. And we know that trolley numbers will vary from one period of the year to the other. But if there's only one person on a trolley, it is an indication that we do have capacity issues, both capacity issues in relation to staff and also in relation to bed capacity. So the present structure of the HSE is not fit for purpose, and the management processes were put in place with, as I said, I think 18 clinical directorates and a group of civil servants who must have had a conflict of interest, being a civil servant and also being a member of the board. And that system became completely unwieldy and not fit for purpose. It was intended to be a temporary arrangement initiated by James Riley. While he put some other structure in place, we never were quite sure what that structure was going to be. Yet the replacement structures, not fit for purpose, are still there 7 years later. And that system has inhibited health reform, and it has inhibited integration and structural reform in our health services. And one of the main difficulties in our health services at the moment is lack of integration. People are in silos, they're in separate offices, they're in separate directorates, they're in separate divisions, they have separate budgets, and they don't speak to each other. Consequently, so much inefficiency builds up in the system, and so much unmet need builds up in the system. At the moment, we have a HSE which has had 3 Director Generals in the past 8 months, and yet we have failed to fill that position. And we're now engaging in another interview process to try and find a candidate who has the skills and expertise to lead an organisation which has numbers 135,000 people working within the HSE. The person with the skills and managerial experience to fill that post is going to be very, very difficult to find. And I believe that there is going to have to be an extremely attractive package to attract somebody who can run a service like that. And I think it would be money well spent, because we waste so much money in our health service, millions and millions and millions of euros. When you look at what's happened to the budget for the Children's Hospital, which is now increased by a factor of 2 or a factor of 3, depending on what figures you believe, going over budget by maybe up to 1 billion, you must pay somebody to run an organisation an attractive salary so that you can stop that kind of waste. So I think it's very important that we do, apart from appointing a new HSE board, that we do have a Director General of the HSE as soon as possible who has the skills and expertise to manage it. And that person will be responsible to the board. And again, as Catherine Connolly says, it's very important, because Tony O'Brien admitted that he was reporting to himself. For several years he was reporting to himself, obviously had responsibility to the Minister, but it's important that we have a proper structure, a proper managerial structure in place. The Scally report resulting from the cervical screening controversy highlighted in stark terms the deficiencies in accountability and in transparency that exist in the health service. And you're quite right, Deputy Connolly, accountability and transparency are absolutely essential when we constitute this new board. It has to be independent, but it has to be answerable, it has to explain its decisions, and we can see that when a corporate entity or when a political decision is made which affects our health service, and that decision is incorrect or wrong, that has profound implications for the delivery of health service and health services. So we talk about clinical responsibility, and if a doctor or a nurse or a health professional makes a mistake, they are accountable to their professional bodies, and if they are found to be negligent, then they will suffer the consequences. But we make political decisions and corporate decisions willy-nilly in our health service, which have profound negative effects on our health service. Yet nobody is held responsible. Nobody puts their hand up and says that was a wrong decision. If we had gone a different way, we could have saved so many millions of euros. We could have improved the health of our patients. We may have saved lives. So corporate decisions are extremely important and should not be underestimated. Ciarán Devine has been appointed the chair-designate of the yet-to-be-constituted HSE board, and he will have a very important task. Number one, he will be part of the interview panel to appoint a new Director General to the HSE, but he will also have an influence on the people who are appointed to the HSE board, and it is very important that that board is a slimmed down board from the previous board, that it has particular skills in change management, and that's very important. When we look at the Sláinte Care report and how that has to be implemented, we must have experience on the HSE board excuse me, on change management and implementing reform. So I think the new HSE board will have important functions. It will have to ensure that the HSE engages with Sláintecare reform programme and engages with Laura McGahey, the director of the Sláintecare Implementation Office, to ensure that Sláintecare reforms are deeply embedded in HSE service plans year on year for the next 10 years and for many years after that, so that reforms are put in place to improve patient services and improve patient outcomes. And that is the essence of a health service, is to improve patient outcomes and to deliver a service. And I have been impressed with the HSE service plan delivered at the end of December last year, because it has, for the first time, embraced reform, and references to Sláintecare are widely scattered throughout that report. And I think there is an intention and a recognition in the HSE that Sláintecare has to be delivered. I think there's a greater recognition within the HSE than there is within the Department of Health on the importance of delivering on Sláintecare. And the new board must also build on accountability and transparency in managing and making decisions. And I've said bad corporate decisions have a profound effect on population health. You referred to one of them, Deputy Connell, in relation to the retirement of very senior people in 2012, where the HSE lost a huge raft of experience because of a change in pension arrangements. It wasn't intended, but that was the knock-on consequence of those pension arrangements, and we lost a huge amount of corporate knowledge in that. But then you look at the corporate decision in relation to the Children's Hospital, the length of time it's taken to deliver it, the controversy over its location, the cost of construction, and eventually the cost of commissioning, which we learnt in the Health Committee this morning is going to cost 300 million. So that moves the cost from 1.4 to 1.7 billion, and we're 4 or 5 years out from the first child gaining access to that hospital. So there are many corporate decisions that have profound effects on patients, and unless those corporate decisions are correct, we won't have proper delivery of services. And the new board must also build trust. Trust in the health system, trust from patients. And unfortunately, there are many patients who do not trust our health service at the moment. They do not trust the HSE to deliver the service, and many patients are afraid to go into hospital now because of previous experience or experience from friends or family, or listening constantly on the news every day. There's 400, there's 500, there's 600 people on trolleys. So we do have to build trust, and we do have to build trust not only in the patients, but also we have to build trust with staff. Because if we don't build trust with staff who feel fulfilled in going to work and have job satisfaction, we're going to lose them, and we are losing them, and we're losing our graduate doctors, our graduate nurses, our graduate therapists, who are going to other systems which function properly and give them job satisfaction. So we must build trust, and we should not underestimate the importance of morale. And I remember when our Present Minister for Health took up position, I said to him across the floor of the Dáil, the first thing you can do, which won't cost you a single penny, is to try and improve the morale of the staff working in the health service. And unfortunately, I don't think he's been able to manage to do that yet. The new board must also build a new relationship with the Department of Health. And looking at the interaction between the Department of Health and the HSE in the Health Committee over the past 2.5 years, there is a palpable tension between the Department of Health and the HSE. Perhaps that tension is a good tension, but I feel there is a lot of negativity there, and there isn't a proper process of engagement between the Department of Health and the HSE, and there tends to be a blame game there quite often. So there needs to be an honest and forthright interaction between the department and the HSE to support new and innovative models of care. And the models of care we have at the moment are not working because there's a lack of integration. But also we have a health system which is built on models of care which were okay 40 or 50 years ago. But health technology and health management has moved on, but the structures that are underpinning our health service are still the same. They have not changed. So we do need to have new innovative models of care, and that really means integration between primary and secondary care, where there is vast improvements in communication between those who are involved in looking after people in the community and those who are looking after people in our hospital services. And again, they're siloed, they're separate, there's very little communication. And one of the major problems in that is we do not have an IT system. We do not have ICT to manage a modern health service. We don't have a single patient unique identifier, nor do we have an electronic patient record. And those two things are the driver, I think, of health reform. Not only will they deliver efficiencies, but they will also give you data. And you cannot manage a health system if you do not have data. Data is king. Data is money. And if you don't have real-time data on what's happening within your health service, then your planning is not going to be optimal. So I think the new board will have to concentrate on all those things. So finally, I would say that the board must drive integration of our hospital services between the community and our consultant hospital-led services. It must expand bed capacity, and there is no point in denying that we have a huge deficit in bed capacity. The bed capacity review suggested that if we engage in full-bodied health reform where we change structures and change our models of care, we will still need 2,600 beds over the next 10 years. If we don't engage in health reform, if we keep doing what we're doing and expecting by magic to get a better result, we're going to need 8,000 beds. Now, what chance have we got of getting 2,600 beds, let alone 8,000 beds? And one of the major reforms also recommended by Sláintecare is that we have elective-only hospitals where patients are not being displaced by people coming up from casualty, continually displacing people coming in for elective care. So there's a whole range of things that the HSE board needs to concentrate on, and it's a huge task. And we must finally then make Ireland a magnet for health staff. What we have at the moment is we are repelling our graduates, we're repelling our nurses, we're repelling our doctors, we're repelling our therapists, and they're going away to health services that work, that can give them job satisfaction, that can give them job progression. It's not all about money, it's about being allowed to deliver a level of care to the maximum of their training and their will to provide a health service. And there's huge will in our graduates. They want to deliver a health service, but they find, having trained in the service here, that they cannot see light at the end of the tunnel. They have low morale and they go elsewhere where they get better job satisfaction. So Cathaoirleach, I hope that this new board will achieve all of the items that I've mentioned here this evening and that Catherine Connolly has mentioned, because unless we innovate, unless we change and unless we reform, this health service is going to continue to deteriorate. Thank you.